Here, read this.
Woof.
Hello and good morning from John Kay's bookshop in Edinburgh. I'm going to do another of these recent reads where I talk to you about a few books I've been reading recently. I've got a bit of time before I have to open up this morning. And the first book I'd like to talk about is a hearty recommendation. We're going to start positive. It's not all going to be positive today, I'm afraid. This is a debut novel called Idle Grounds by Krystelle Bamford, who's a local author. She lives in Edinburgh. This was recommended to me by a friend, and it was a fantastic recommendation because it's really up my street. It's the story of a gang of children at a family birthday party who are exploring the grounds and the rooms of a family home. And as they stumble across, without giving too much away, a supernatural element of the plot, they begin to pick at this mystery. They're trying to explain the unexplainable things they keep seeing as they move around the house. The grown-ups don't understand. They are also picking through the relics, the furnishings, the clutter of their parents, that grown-up generation. And the indecipherable wreckage of their adult lives is just as mysterious as the supernatural phenomena they end up entangled with. I'm trying very carefully to avoid giving away too much that might be a spoiler. I thoroughly recommend it. I loved Krystelle Bamford's style of writing. I love the way that she writes about what a child sees clearly and honestly, sometimes with an honesty that's harrowing to adults. And she managed to write from that child's perspective, or at least cast back to it. There is the retrospective element to the narration, but it's very much told as if recalling what it was like through a child's eyes. But she does that without taking any of the sentimentality an adult might imprint onto a child. Or, adults have a tendency to remember childhood as slightly more sweetened than it actually was. They forget that children are quite callow at times and mordant and cynical and cruel. It's all there in this novel. It's really fantastically told, and I've since got in touch with Krystelle, and we're hoping to do an interview shortly, so I hope to be able to talk a lot more about this novel and also share it with anyone. But highly recommend the book. Check it out. The next book I'm going to talk to you is Careless People by Sarah Wynn-Williams. Also a recent book, I believe it came out this year. This is a tell-all memoir about Facebook, written by Facebook's former diplomat turned whistleblower. You might have seen some of the noise about this book's publication. It was billed as a kind of explosive tell-all memoir that's going to have them quaking in their boots at Facebook. I don't think it will, frankly. It was a bit disappointing on that count. This book doesn't have a great deal of surprises in it. It's not surprising that there is widespread sexual misdemeanors taking place at Facebook. It's not surprising that the company is not supportive of its employees taking maternity leave or just even being mothers. It's not surprising that a tech company is just not understanding or remotely accepting of motherhood. It's not surprising that Mark Zuckerberg is exactly as thick as you'd imagine, since he's basically like an ailing medieval prince who's been rolled up in a carpet for 40 years. It's not surprising or news to find out that Facebook spread misinformation that got Donald Trump elected, sold user data to the Chinese government, and fudges its taxes. And yet all of these things are related with this sort of disbelieving, I thought Facebook was all about connecting people, which is a shtick that Sarah Wynn-Williams sticks to throughout the book. And after a while, it really becomes quite wearing. She's not an idiot. She's a former UN lawyer. She's clearly an extremely intelligent person. And the affect of being surprised continually by the predatory nature of Facebook, the fact that it's not, in the end, all about connecting people, just becomes a little bit suspect after a while. It begins to sound a bit exculpatory. I don't buy it. I work on the basis that anyone within spitting range of Facebook probably isn't to be trusted. And so someone, even if she is a whistleblower, someone saying, it was just such a whirlwind. I was in such a kerfuffle. I didn't notice all that about the data being sold. I didn't notice all that about us not paying our taxes. I don't know. I don't really buy it. I actually enjoyed the book. It was full of what I would call excellent gossip, but I didn't think the book was very good. I don't think it was very well written. I think tonally it was quite off. It does, in all fairness, have an absolutely brilliant comic sequence involving Mark Zuckerberg, the Pope, and Big Bird from Sesame Street. And I was thinking about just reading out that entire sequence, but it's actually quite prolonged. But I would say if you can find that excerpt, that's worth reading. But yeah, that's Careless People by Sarah Wynn-Williams. Next up, and sticking with contemporary American non-fiction, we have Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex Thomspson. If you didn't hear the noise about the previous one, you'll definitely have heard the noise about this one. This is the book that's detailing the cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline in the, last years of his presidency, but you could argue first years during his campaign and even before that. The scandal of Biden's health being written off as no big deal, the American public and the global public being told to mistrust your lying eyes, he's absolutely fine, has been slightly overshadowed by the smaller scandal, the publishing scandal of this book. So Jake Tapper is a newsreader for, I believe, CNN. He was actually one of the invigilators. Do they call them that? Or one of the compares at Biden and Trump's debate. That one, the one where Biden's whole facade of health melted before our eyes. And he has been promoting this book on CNN for weeks in the lead up to its publication. I think it came out on May 20th. Provoking like an angered response from people who think newsreaders should probably tell their viewers the news and not hold back some of the juicier news for a book. The authors claim that the most of what they have found has come out subsequent to the November 2024 election, and so it would have made no difference in terms of Donald Trump's re-election. But really that's all kind of by the by now, thanks to Biden, but really more his inner circle of people supporting him and enabling him. One thing the book does is repeatedly chastise Biden for not being straight with the public, while simultaneously saying that his mental state is seriously degraded. If it's that degraded, then I don't really think he can be held responsible. And really blame should fall on his inner circle, who do get called out by the book. They sort of chart the way that he has successfully projected his personal myth onto the public, a myth of Joe Biden, who whenever he gets knocked down, and life's dealt him plenty of knockdowns, he always gets back up every damn time, which has led to a kind of toxic positivity, as the book sets out. An inability on a personal level to deal with anything bad, hear any bad news, deal with grief, accept personal failings. It's always just get back up and keep on slugging. And it's it's all going to be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, then it's not the end. That sort of logic. That he has inculcated that in his inner circle. All of his team believe that. There is a portrait of a real personality cult around Biden. It's all very uncomfortable in terms of an elected president behaving like a king, and where just simply continuing to exist is proof that he's doing the job. I don't need to take a cognitive test. Every day is a cognitive test. Similarly, facile statements from his doctor like, the president remains a vigorous 78-year-old male, as if anyone's contending his gender and not his brain. The book does illustrate that there's a history of presidents with private ailments, from FDR to JFK with Addison's disease and his various drug issues, Reagan with Alzheimer's, and obviously Trump. And that's probably the most dispiriting one of all, because Trump's blatant mental inadequacies are really kind of excused by the precedent of Biden. You can't contend that obvious senility is a bar to becoming president when you covered it up with the last guy for years. The day before this book came out, Biden announced that he was battling prostate cancer. which led to speculation that this was timed to anticipate material that's in the book. There's nothing about prostate cancer in the book, so I don't think that either Tapper held that back. Maybe there's a sequel that he's been working on, or he didn't know about that. Also absent from the book is any meaningful critique of Biden facilitating a genocide whilst being mentally unfit for office. That is by far and away the most serious repercussion of this cover-up, and Tapper and Thomspson completely fail to address it. Instead, the focus is on misleading American voters in the run-up to the 2024 election and bungling the chances of Kamala Harris as the subsequent candidate. And from the opening epigraph from King Lear, it's clear that they're more interested in the personal tragedy of Joe Biden, a man undone by his personal myth, the human horror story of someone subsumed by madness, by a failing brain, to the point at which he can't remember the name of close personal friends he's worked with every day for years, or the year in which his son died. But it's difficult not to think that personal tragedy really pales into insignificance when you zoom out a little bit. A frustrating book. I'm thinking about writing something for my Substack about this, because when I looked back over my notes for this video, I had far more than I can get into a quick little recent read. So look out for that. I'll link my Substack below. I post book reviews, usually contemporary-ish book reviews. Next up, and sticking with the theme of madness, is this book, Manic Power, by Jeffrey Meyers, or Meyers. That's Robert Lowell on the cover. Fantastic choice of cover photo. Fairly handsome shot of Lowell, but with a gleam, I think, of the freak within behind his eyes. This is a book I actually came across doing some research for Sylvia Plath in the archives in Glasgow. Glasgow Library, in their special collections, has an archive left by Philip Hobsbawm, and one of the items in there was a full printout of this book, which I obviously didn't have time to read cover to cover. You're going through sort of single newspaper articles or documents. But I made a note of it because it has a lengthy epilogue on Sylvia Plath. The subtitle is Robert Lowell and His Circle, and it is mostly, its main focus is Lowell, John Berryman, Theodore Ruthke, and Randall Jarrell. But the epilogue is on Plath, and it was really good. And for Plath fans, it serves a really interesting grounding for the generation of poets directly before Plath, many of whom I have to say I don't particularly like. I don't really like any of them as people, and this book will only cemented that opinion. They are, for the most part, astoundingly arrogant, selfish, conceited, destructive arseholes. That's your starting point with virtually all of them. Some of them were also, in my opinion anyway, dreadful at what they did. John Berryman makes writing awful poetry look like fantastically hard work. The book is a whistle-stop tour of the American Royal Court of Poets in the mid-20th century. And it looks at the degree to which they all suffered from some kind of mania, the extent to which it was affected, encouraged, pursued, and wrestled with by all of these poets. But what I really enjoyed about the book was the way that Meyers, without negating or downplaying the destruction that these men brought upon their loved ones, he kept an eye for the ludicrous, and I just wanted to quote you one very quick bit. So, in 1948, Lowell had an affair with Carly Dawson, which she found baffling and singularly joyless. He spent a good deal of time talking about bears, a private fantasy, and during a discussion of Shakespeare, suddenly began to strangle her. So yeah, as I say, that's Manic Power. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't actually expecting to read the whole thing. I picked this up for a couple of pounds online, mainly for the long epilogue on Plath, which was excellent. But I really, really enjoyed the rest of the book, even though it's about poets that I'm not half as into. So that's Manic Power. And finally, a bit of a weird one, this one. I recently read Demonology by King James VI and First. I've read quite a lot of demonology over the years because it often gets exerted into introductions of Shakespeare or books about Jacobean history, or indeed biographies of James. But I've actually never read it all the way through, and it's not a very long book, it's a short treatise. At the moment, at the Scottish Portrait Library, there is an exhibition on King James and his world, and I was looking at a copy of Demonology and decided now is the time to read the whole thing. And it very much lived up to its notorious reputation. So it's an argument for the existence of magic, of witchcraft. It offers a kind of taxonomy of supernatural dabblers, and it includes recommendations for punishment, which are, I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear, severe. Interestingly, given the book we've just talked about, one of the symptoms of demonic activity that James goes into is sufferers behaving in a way that's frantic or manic. The book is infamous for its misogyny. James explains that women are more frequently witches than men. There are male witches. It's not just a gendered thing. And that is simply because they're weaker and more biddable and frailer than men. It is utterly uncompromising in wanting to exterminate anyone who is a practicing witch. On the lighter side of items of interest, James uses a lot of Scots language, words like scunner and allanally in there, meaning only in Scots, rummishing for roaring. Just finally, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about demonology was to also recommend a video, or really a film, that I found on YouTube, which is made by Atunche Films. And he has basically recorded all of Demonology, or it's slightly abridged, but most of it's there. And not only that, but he speaks it in original pronunciation with a Scots dialect in there too. It's really impressive, and I watched it all through after reading it and found it really, really helpful, actually, just to listen to and to think more about the structure of it. It's framed as a dialogue, the book. So for an academic treatise, it actually works surprisingly well in adaptation. And that brings us to the end of these recent reads. Thank you very much for watching. I better open this bookshop now and start selling some books instead of just talking about them. Until next time, happy reading.